Have you ever heard the quote that you can never step in the same river twice because the river's not the same, but neither is the man? I mean, in the beginning, when I started just making money cleaning window, I wasn't some fancy entrepreneur person. I was an orphan mindseted person trying to survive.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Cultureproof podcast. I am your host, Sam Gimbel. If you are new to the leadership community here, make sure you hit the good old subscribe button to get informed on all the unbelievable things that we have going over here. If you do find growth in what we are about to cover today, and I am 99.9999999% sure you're going to, it would mean the world to me if you could share the content, tag me in the content, tag my guest in the content, so that the message we're going to share can grow legs and multiply. Let's dive into this episode. My guest today, you guys are in for a treat. I'm almost like overwhelmed and overzealous at the chance to just let this guy loose into the Culture Proof community today. But my guest is a first generation entrepreneur who started his journey back in the trailer park, and he never looked back. Josh is married to his high school sweetheart, kind of much like my journey, which we'll unpack our two relationships that you guys had no idea actually intertwined, and we actually didn't have any idea. The dude's lived in two different countries. It's been rumored that he actually speaks a little bit of broken Spanish, and along with his beautiful wife, they are raising 5 incredible kids. The number one passion of Josh and why I wanted to bring this guy into the community today is this guy lives, breathes, eats, and sleeps, helping different entrepreneurial families build wealth, just become incredibly generous with their blessings, and actually tie all that into a family culture that will leave a legacy. I'm telling you guys he's been such an influence to me. He's been married to his wife, I believe, for 23, 24 years now, something like that, a long time, which is incredible. Surviving multiple businesses, being married that long. He has started, he has scaled, and he has exited 4 different companies. He's launched multiple podcasts, but he's gotten over 1 million downloads on his podcast episodes. He has sold more than $21 million worth of different coaching packages, different products online, all that. And check this one out, don't miss this. Along with his kids, he actually co-created with his kids a 90-day journal, which my kids flipping love. It's a 90-day journal for children that this program that he launched, we'll talk about it here on the episode, did over $1 million in sales. It reached over the entire United States and also 19 different countries. Today, he is the absentee owner of a multi-million-dollar company that some of you may have heard of called Senjim. He's also the CEO of Warplan, which is his newest venture that kind of helps business owners double, triple, quadruple their take-home profit in their businesses without spending a bunch of money on ads. I know that's one of the things that just drives us as business leaders and coaches crazy when we see our entrepreneur friends light their money on fire. He uses this proprietary method called the FRAP formula, or FRAP, and we'll unpack that here on the episode today. But without further ado, welcome to the show, Josh Latimer. Woo!
What's up, Sam? Thank you. That was over the top. I feel super weird and awkward now because you made me sound way more interesting than I actually am, but I do appreciate it. It's great to see you, brother.
It's good to be here, man. Thank you for carving some time out of, I know, your crazy busy schedule to make this happen. It was funny because when we were first kind of talking about getting together and having you be a guest on the Culture Proof podcast and me be a guest on your podcast, I remember it was like, just to get connected with you for the few minutes that we had, I literally had pulled over into a parking lot here in my hometown and sent invites out back and forth just so we could lock the date in. So I'm excited to dive in. I know that you are going to add incredible value to our community here today. Before we dive in and get into, asking questions and just kind of delivering the content that our listeners are going to get. I want to talk a little bit about me and you and how we actually didn't know each other, but who would have thought we were so close? So for those of you listening and watching this, I was a part of an organization called Conquer, as an advisor and as a coach, as a table lead for about 3.5 years. I had got invited in by a friend of mine who was a fellow entrepreneur, fellow coach, and he's like, man, this organization, there's just a bunch of incredible entrepreneurs that are there that they just need help. And what you've built with Atlas, Sam, I think you'd be a good fit. The guy that leads it, that owns it, he's a Christian guy, and he's a dad, he's a husband, and I think your values would be aligned. And at that time, of course, I was speaking about our friend Brandon, because that's who I knew. And so, I become a part of this program, and I'm leading, 8 to 10 different entrepreneurs in there and all that. And I believed it was kind of the first I had ever seen of its kind, this program where entrepreneurs could come in and have access to, systems and documents and the ability to jump on a call and speak to entrepreneurial leaders and coaches from all different, income levels and scale levels. And I had wished there had been a Conquer, when I was going through the dark years of my business. And so as I got kind of involved with the program a little bit and learned a little bit more, I had learned that there was actually this other guy that had started it and he sold it. I don't know if that was exit 2 or whatever it was for you, Josh, but you had started the company at the time. And I'd wondered why the email address that I was given was automate, grow, sell. So I had no idea, what that meant. I'm like, it's a cool email address. I'll put it on some cards and give it to some people. And so anyway, I had a young man that for years would come to my home here in Heartland, and he would, do our soft wash on our siding and clean our windows. And I never really knew that, like, the exterior home service business, I didn't realize how big it was. Conquer kind of opened my eyes to that, and being a part of it. And how much I knew that it was helping fellow home service businesses. I'm trying to sell it to the guy that, is cleaning my house. Good dude, small, 1 or 2 employees. And I said, man, have you ever heard of a program called Conquer? And he goes, oh yeah, for sure. And I'm like, why are you, not part of it, man? Like, I wish I would have had that when I first started my business. And, he's like, yeah, I've looked into it, but I'm busy. Just typical answer, right? Typical entrepreneurial answer. And he says, the guy that started that is from Flint, Michigan. And I'm like, no, I'm a coach and an advisor there. Like, he goes, no, like, I know, but the guy that started it is a Flint guy. And I said, no, he's from like Texas or like another country or something. Like, he's not from Flint. And he goes, no, it was the guy that owned Birds Beware window cleaning. He had actually, exited Birds Beware, or kind of started that business during the Birds Beware kind of portion of business, and, sold Birds Beware, went all in on this. And I'm pretty sure he actually sold it to the guy that you're talking about, which was our friend Brandon. And so I literally had no idea, but I'm like, I'm gonna send this guy a message. So I actually sent you a message and said, hey, Sam, what's going on? And we became Facebook friends. And then we actually, like, we had interacted back and forth, but I really didn't realize how you were like a true kind of Flintstone. I didn't know the trailer park story. I didn't know any of that stuff. I did know about Birds Beware because obviously you couldn't drive through Genesee County and not see one of the Birds Beware window cleaning trucks, cleaning a business or cleaning a home or whatever. But after we had connected at one of the first, I believe it was my first Conquer Summit that you and Ashley were there, that it really had opened my eyes up that I think God kind of took me to Conquer, because I know, personally, humbly said, I know I changed some lives being a part of that program. And I think it was no accident that, where you came from. Obviously, you and me both know that Flint is a very, very broken city, right? If the lead from the bullets didn't kill you, the lead from the water will. It's sad truth, but there's just a lot of brokenness there. And that kind of leads me to my passion to want to help the people of Genesee County. And obviously, growing a pretty good business there. And anyway, so it was cool to hear your story. And as I've gotten to know you over the last, really more intimately, the last 3 or 4 years, it's just, there's no biblical word in the Bible that says or represents coincidence, meaning that every single thing that happens is something that God has ordained. You can read through it and try to find the word coincidence, you won't find it. And so, meaning that all things that happen, somehow, some way, they're connected to a God thing. And I actually don't. I actually believe that somehow, where our past intertwine has something to do with that. So anyway, make sure our listeners understand that we're just a couple of Michiganders here, just trying to make a difference in the world.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And I knew your company as well because it's gigantic. And I'd see Atlas trucks running around all over the place. But yeah, we started in a trailer park, small beginnings. One of my favorite quotes is "Don't despise small beginnings." That's shout out to my mom, right? I was a pizza delivery driver, married to my high school sweetheart. I started my little business with a ladder strapped to the roof of a junky 1993 Chevy Cavalier. That's our origin story. And then
I think
Conquer, yeah.
everybody our age has owned a Cavalier at one point. I'm pretty sure everybody's had a Chevy Cavalier
Yeah.
at one
Where
point
are
in
my
their
Chevy Cavalier people at? Shout out to the Chevy. But
journey.
I sold a majority stake in Conquer to Brandon. Brandon was like a follower of mine and was like listening to my podcast and was learning a lot. And then I finally met him, and he's super smart. He built an incredible business. And he came to one of the events we had in Michigan and just fell in love with the idea of like helping people. And at the time, I wanted to step back. So I sold a majority stake to him, and he really grew it a lot bigger and just did some really cool things with it. Um, but no one knew who he was. So actually, what people don't know is that for a year, I started to platform Brandon. So we did the transaction, but didn't tell anybody for 1 year. And then I started having him on my podcast and like putting him out there and going Facebook Live with him and like introducing him to all these people because no one, for the most part, knew who he was. And so we did that as a strategic plan so that it like made sense. And when we announced the partnership, it was like, oh yeah, Josh and Brandon, because I talked about him incessantly for a whole year. And he did a great job. And Conquer grew really big. Part of the problem with it is like the bigger it got, the worse it was in a lot of ways. The bottom line is that small accountability groups change people's lives. Knees to knees, toes to toes. Like there's something about human connection and just accountability. There's something about belief being transferable, right? That's super huge. I mean, it's huge because you could watch a course or you could listen to a podcast like this. It's not the same thing as being in a battle group of people with a shared goal, kind of iron sharpens iron type of stuff. Because it's so freaking hard to build a business. It's like impossible, let
Yeah.
alone build a business that actually makes profit or build a business that doesn't destroy your marriage, right? So Conquer had a profound effect on a lot of different people, and we're really proud of it.
Yeah, as you should be. I mean, honestly, like I said, it to get to come in at the level where it already had momentum and it was already moving. To get plugged into it, I think I took away just as much as I gave to it with just being involved with obviously yourself and Brandon has just had a profound impact on my life as well, just with his leadership and his entrepreneurial spirit and his desire to serve and grow fellow leaders and business owners. And so, yeah, definitely pretty cool how that all went down when you were, let's just like a 1 minute. I want to talk about Birds Beware real quick. So growing up, my dad was actually one of his handyman businesses was he washed windows in downtown Flint. So like he'd take his bucket, his mop, and I learned the J stroke. I learned about the J stroke before I knew what it was called. I actually learned about the squeegee technique from him. But then one of our conquerors was like talking about it one day, and I went, "What is the J stroke?" And he like reenacted it. I said, "Dude, my dad used to do that." And the irony in that is growing up, as you know my story, but like my dad would wash windows basically to just for our family to eat that day. Like it wasn't to build wealth or anything like that. It was very just a way for us to get food from Angelo's, Coney Island, or whatever he was doing,
Yeah.
And when I saw Birds Beware as I'm, starting my entrepreneurial journey and I'm seeing the trucks everywhere, that was actually the first time I had ever saw window cleaning in a commercial capacity. I knew there was some companies out there. I don't think you invented it, but you were definitely an early pioneer of scaling a window cleaning business. And I remember thinking to myself, because my dad, had passed away as I really got to learn more about Birds Beware and yourself. And I'm thinking to like, Dad, you you could have done something with that. What the heck, man? Like this guy makes money. Like there's a business out there. You don't have to just wash windows for $12 and in hopes to be able to feed your family that night. So anyway, I want to get right into that because I would describe you as a serial entrepreneur. You've exited multiple businesses over your tenure, and so I want to talk about that. When you start a business, and most of our just to kind of fill you in on our community here, most of our listeners are they're leading in some form of a capacity, whether it's they're an entrepreneur, they own a business, they're ops managers, there's pastors, leaders of nonprofits, we got salespeople, so we've got a large spectrum here. But I want to talk about to the people right now that are the business owners. When you start a business, do you go into it with the plans right out of the gate that you are not going to be heavily involved in on it? Or because obviously when something's new, right, it's you got to nurture it, you got to talk to it, you got to love on it, it really requires a lot, like a baby, right? And so
Yeah.
when you go in, do you start a new business? Obviously business ownership is the means of solving a problem. So when you go into it, do you plan to not be heavily involved in the business, or do you go in with it with the plans that I'm going to grow it, scale it, sell it, or what does that look like for you?
Well, it depends on what year of Josh we're talking about, right? Have you ever heard the quote that you can never step in the same river twice because the river's not the same, but neither is the man? I mean, in the beginning, when I started just making money cleaning window, I wasn't some fancy entrepreneur person. I was an orphan mindseted person trying to survive. And like orphan mindseted people, are like a biblical reference. You can think of like Egypt, right? They like rescue the slaves out of Egypt, but they're still slaves in their mind. Like nothing's actually changed except their location. Their mindset's exactly the same. And a lot of entrepreneurs they start their company because they're running away from something, not because they're running towards something. So they're escaping pain, not pursuing destiny. And so that's what we were doing. It's like I had this junky pizza job and I thought I could replace my income squeegeeing stuff, and I learned gradual things as we went. And orphans are making decisions optimizing for survival. It's really hard for them to think long term. It's really hard for them to see past 7 days at the most. I mean, even 24 hours, like your dad, right? He had an orphan mindset. And that's not like a negative, he's bad thing. It's just most of the world is programmed with an orphan mindset. You can take the slave out of Egypt, but you can't take Egypt out of the slave. Or, you can take the kids out of the trailer park. You can't take the trailer park out of the kids, right? So in the beginning, it was one thing, and as I learned more skills, I built up confidence. I was exposed to more success from other people. I think things evolved. Me today, I have a totally different approach and mindset of it. You can't control every outcome, but I certainly think way bigger. And I just think differently. Like everything about who I am is completely different than it was 15 years ago. And then on top of that, working with, thousands of other local businesses, you can see patterns. Everyone thinks their situation is super unique, and it's kind of not. We battle the same types of things, the same types of lies that we believe, the same types of marital problems, cash flow problems, employee problems. It's all the same type of thing. So I've just learned so much, man. It's actually insane to me that people even know who I am or ever ask my advice for anything, because I'm like, who am I? Like, how did this even happen? Like, I bought a
Yeah.
squeegee. Now, it's pretty wild. So with my current company, yeah, we want to have a huge company. I do think there's wisdom in building a business that's sellable, even if you
Yep.
don't want to sell it, because like Brandon Vaughn used to always say, what's your business's bus factor? If you get hit by a bus, does your wife and kids still get grocery money or not? Like you want to
Yeah.
try to at a minimum systemize or set up a scenario where it can sort of survive if something bad happened to you, right? So I think there's wisdom in that, and but yeah, we're trying to build some big things and really shake things up.
I think every business should be built with the systems, processes, scalability, the people. Like the plan is, it's worth something that someday can be an exit, right? Like you said, the hit by a bus plan, whatever that looks like. I believe even leaders within the business should have a hit by a bus plan, because that's how I coach my leadership team. Is God
Mm.
forbid something happens to you, what happens to your team or your direct reports? So somebody should be ready to step up. Otherwise, how do you take a vacation? How do you
Yeah.
have how do you go to your son's graduation if it's in the morning? You can't. And so I'm a firm believer that every role, every position, every business should be built with that mindset. But if you decide to stick around, you love it. You don't hate it. You own the business, it doesn't own you. Or you own your role within your organization, it doesn't own you. When a business is new and you're getting it going and you're getting some traction, I want you to think back to the Send Gym days. Think back to Automate, Grow, Sell. Think back to Birds Beware. When those businesses were starting to get some traction, think of your time like you were building, like you were planting a garden. So you cultivated the land, aka you made a vision of what you wanted this business to look like. You planted some seeds, or aka you bought some equipment, a squeegee, got some technology for your software companies, whatever that looked like. You're getting some things going, and at a certain point now, the garden starts to grow. There's a couple little weeds here and there. It gets getting a little messy, but it's controllable. You're able to spend some time and weed it and cultivate it, put some fertilizer on it, and keep it looking good. But if you didn't do that, if you exited or let people take over too soon before they were prepared, all of a sudden, certain little weeds start to creep in. And now, the culture of what you're building starts to get overgrown. All the good plants and vegetables start to get choked out. And before you know it, the beauty that once like drew people to these businesses that you're built, the beauty starts to get lost in the mess. So when it's
Yeah.
new, it's exciting, it's fresh, it's fun. Everybody's like pumped up to be there. You're pumped up to be there. Even the stress that you deal with is fun. It's like you just thrive on it. The stress is almost like a dopamine hit. Where do you think, what happens where it starts to get away from people? What do you think is that trigger that people can avoid without just being the hands holding every single hole in the boat, to keep it from taking on water? That's the easy answer, right? You just got to be there, be present, and keep the water from coming in. Plug the biggest holes first. But obviously, you've been able to build, scale, exit, not be heavily involved in multiple businesses. When people are struggling to just do it with one, where do you think it starts to get away from people, and how can they prevent that?
Oh man, such a hard question. It's like an impossible question because there's probably 63 different ways that can happen. I think the first one that popped in my head when you were talking was the founder loses their hunger. They get too big for their britches. I think you can reach a level of comfort where you're like, okay, I did it, but there's always atrophy happening inside of any organization or family or even in yourself. Like the law of entropy, the laws of thermodynamics, one of them is the law of entropy. I think it's the second law of thermodynamics because I'm a nerd. And what that means is like everything is kind of in a state of decay. Like we have to put effort inside of a closed system to make it not automatically decay because everything wants to get worse all the time. I mean, if you leave a house and you don't touch it, it'll get pulled back into the earth and covered in vines, and it'll be like it was never there. And that's what happens to businesses. And so how do you achieve more but also be ambitious? How do you not lose your hunger, but also like enjoy the ride? I mean, a lot of success principles are paradoxes, right? It's like ambitious contentment, but I see a lot of businesses start to atrophy and things get weird when the founder takes their eye off the ball because they want to coast. And you can't really coast. I mean, I think when you have a huge company, you can coast a little more, but really you're not coasting because a huge company is going to have super well incentivized, driven people in all these departments with a shared vision, like rowing the boat. You know what I mean? And if your business is full of hungry leaders that are properly incentivized, then maybe that won't happen. So I don't know. When we sold Conquer what happened was I sold a majority stake in Conquer to Brandon. And Brandon decided to, get rid of the whole thing. And we sold it to this huge software company. And it was really interesting watching what happened with that because, I thought that was kind of a bad idea. But as Conquer got absorbed into this gigantic corporate Borg, you could just see like the wheels fall off, the culture. Because, the leadership's tone deaf, like they've never worked and had dirt under their fingernails. Like they don't understand what it's like to be an actual blue collar entrepreneur person. And how is it doing today? I'm not really sure. But it was interesting as I observed that. And so this big corporate entity, it's not that they don't have vision. They're worth $1 billion. Like they make money like crazy. These are very smart people. But at the same time, my world is small business owners. And that's not the same thing as a big corporate Borg. So
Yep.
for small business owners, I think loss of hunger, getting too big for your britches, thinking that you've arrived, taking your foot off the gas way too early. That happens all the time. You hit some milestone that you think means something, but like you're not there yet. It probably needs to be 5, 10 times bigger than that before you take your foot off the gas. So um, maybe there's a useful answer somewhere in there.
There's a ton of useful answers in there somewhere, and I knew asking. I'm thinking to myself, it's such an open ended question. We could probably park the whole episode, on that. But I think you nailed it when you said that they achieve a little taste of success, right? Whether that's like, oh my gosh, that might be I was able to it's 11 a.m. and one of my team members hasn't called me to ask a question about their route. And like, right, just that
I did
little
it.
thing,
I
right?
did
Like
it.
I am successful. And I have countless stories about, going through our journey when I just got like we were doing millions of dollars in business, but we had no cash to survive like 3, 4 days out. And it was very, very scary. And I remember talking to somebody that, was a mentor at the time, and he said, Sam, when when you don't come from much, it doesn't take much for you to feel like you've made it. And I
Mm,
think that same thing happens in business is when people just get a small taste or they check out too early. They empower their first ops manager and think that person is just going to take the business to the next level, and they can, but they still have to be held accountable. There's got to be metrics. There's got to be something that you're holding them to. And obviously, I see this in the coaching world all the time when owners bring in somebody that you nailed that they've never had dirt under their nails, and they're coming in to try to lead this team, and they might be smart, they could be super driven, but they don't understand the dichotomy of a service business, and we're
yeah.
just built different. And so there was so much to unpack with that, but I don't, like I said, that could take up our whole episode. You talk a lot. If anybody's ever listened to your podcast, read any content from you talk a lot about mindset. I hear Latimer and mindset. It's almost like the two words are just like commingled together. When for you did you realize, and hopefully this question doesn't keep us on the whole episode because it could, when did you first realize that business success is more about how you think more than what you do?
Ooh. Well, what's interesting is that every single thing that every single person does is already because of their mindset. Like Myron Golden, he's at this business event we're at here in Mexico, and he's one of my favorite kind of mentor guys. I met him 8 years ago, and he was just coming off some hard times in life, and now he's super internet famous, absolutely amazing speaker. There's very few people in the world like this man, Myron Golden. But he used to always tell me, he's like, Josh, the goal he would say lots of really cool things. One of the things is he'd say people need to stop trying to succeed. They need to start letting themselves succeed. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? That's weird. There's something there, but what? Or he'd say the goal should never be to do something. The goal should be to feel like doing something. So to directly answer the question, mindset automatically controls actions. And the reason why is because it works like this. There's like 5 parts to this. Like the thoughts that we have in our head, if they're left unchecked, they become subconscious beliefs. Okay. This is just science. Okay. The beliefs that we have in our subconscious automatically create feelings in our heart. The feelings that we feel automatically control the actions in our hand. And so the goal isn't to like do something new
Because if you only use willpower to change the thing that you're doing, it's a very short-sighted temporary fix. Like you can do it. Discipline's important, discipline's more important than motivation, but willpower is a finite resource. Haven't you ever noticed some people like effortlessly succeed and how other
At least it looks
people,
that way. At
what's that?
least it looks that way.
It's really true. And it doesn't mean they don't have struggle, but like there's just something totally fundamentally different about how they dance through life and things happen to them. And then other people are constantly sabotaging themselves. It's like they have one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. And this all goes back to mindset stuff because, in my experience, the biggest struggle for most local business owners is like a feeling of worthiness. Most small business owners are like allergic to making profit, for example. And it's because they feel dirty, guilty, or bad if they don't suffer to make a dollar. Like they want to just destroy themselves to make a dollar. And this comes from like poverty mindset, blue collar mindset, things that your parents might have said to you, like, you got to work hard to get ahead, or money doesn't grow on trees, or time is money. See, all these little sayings, they're not even true. First of all, money grows all over trees. Have you ever heard of like an appletini or something? You can sell the lumber, like that's just not true. Time is money is not true. Time is infinitely more valuable than money. It's not the equivalent of money. Time is a finite resource, and money is a spiritual infinite resource. So all these mindset things that are programmed in us, they control how we feel, and how we feel controls our day. And I haven't like figured all this stuff out. Part of the reason I teach and talk about this a lot is because I'm still trying to figure it out. One of the best ways to learn is to teach. And so the more I articulate these ideas, the more they lock in and concrete in my own life. So I don't think small businesses even come close to thinking enough about mindset. We need to think about what we think about. We need to take a hard look at our identity. Who do we think that we are? What do we think we deserve? What do we think we're capable of and worthy of? Imagine setting goals based on what you're capable of instead of setting goals based on what other people in your industry are doing. That by itself is a whole mind trip, right? Don't say, oh, I'm going to go from 8.3 million to 11 million, then to 16 million, then to 21 million. No. The question is like, what are you capable of? Because everything God made, he made to grow and expand and reach its full potential. Humans are no exception to that, except we have free will. Have you ever seen an apple tree, Sam, that doesn't make 100% of the apples it could make? Have you ever seen an apple tree that doesn't reach 100? And you might have one apple tree that only makes 6 apples, and then the tree dies because it was planted in bad soil and it got scorched by the sun. But that tree reached 100% of its potential based on the conditions that it was planted in, right? And then this other tree planted in perfect conditions makes 20,000 apples, right? Both of those trees reach their full potential. I think humans, we're like those apple trees, except we have attitudes and we feel sorry for ourselves and we overthink things. We think that overthinking is a strategy. And a lot of our behavior, really all of our behavior, is driven by subconscious beliefs. So we have to reprogram ourselves. Babies are only born with 2 natural fears: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. And everything else you have that creates anxiety in you, fear in you, procrastination, overthinking, all of this stuff comes from a thing that you think is true. It's a belief, okay? All of it, and we need to reprogram it. And how did we get programmed the first time around? It's through our eyes and our ears. That's how every human is programmed. It's by the life or death that was spoken over them, by people of authority that had permission to speak into their life. It's by the proximity of people in their life and what they see as normal. They start constructing this worldview. A lot of people, when things start going well in their business, feel anxiety because their whole life growing up, when things would start to go well, that was what happened right before things went really bad. That's right before dad would come home drunk. That's right before mom left dad. That's right before some horrible thing happened. And so then when your business starts to succeed and you're like, why am I destroying my own success? It's because of that. And so our eyes and our ears are gates. We have to actively reprogram and get the bad virus code out of our brain, our subconscious. And over time, even though this is hard, what will happen is the way you feel will change. And when the way you feel changes, doing what's required for success becomes way easier. It's not hard for a very fit person to eat healthy. I actually had dinner with Myron himself, and we went to this
It
fancy
was very
restaurant.
fit. Very, very fit.
Very fit. He's in his 60s. I'm not in shape. I'm A shape. Okay. I've struggled with my weight my whole life up and down. But we're sitting eating at a place called Eddie V's. So the whole parking lot is Rolls Royces and like Ferraris and Lambos, and it's a fancy place in Tampa. And I'm looking at the menu. I'm like, oh, I want the lobster mac and cheese. I'm getting this. I'm getting this. And I have my son with me. We ordered all this stuff. And Myron and his wife ordered like a little piece of fish with a salad. And they knew him by name there because he goes there all the time. And I said, I'm like shoveling food in my mouth. And I'm like, Myron, isn't it hard to come to a great place like this and just get a little salad and a piece of fish? And he looked at me. He goes, I don't understand the question, Josh. This is who I am. And so as simple as that sounds, it's super profound. Like it took no willpower for him to eat in accordance with who he thinks that he is. Does that make sense? It's a huge thing, right? So like the results all of us are getting in our business are actually perfectly calibrated based on exactly what we're supposed to get because of the things we did or did not do for the last 6 months or the last 5 years or for the last decade. So there's no like conspiracy. You can have anything you want. Can't have everything you want, but you can have anything you want. But we got to get the mindset right. So that was a very long answer, but I am passionate about this topic because I see lots of orphans running around there, and that's who we were, man. I felt guilty if getting ahead wasn't really hard. You know, you got to work hard to get ahead. Is that really true? Because the hardest working people in the world get paid the least, Sam. And you can say it's not fair, okay, but that's how Earth is. And so if you dig a hole in Papua New Guinea, you don't get paid that much. If you fry the French fries at McDonald's, you don't get paid that much. It doesn't mean you're not valuable as a human, but economically, bottom of the list, right? So the hardest workers get paid the least. The guy watching the guy dig the hole gets paid more than the guy digging the hole, right? So it's not that you got to work hard to get ahead. Like we need leverage. We need to think differently. And it starts with our identity and not feeling guilty for even being successful in the first place.
And thank you guys for another episode of the Cultureproof podcast. We're going to end it right there. No, just kidding. That was an unbelievable answer, Josh. Thank you for unpacking that. I'm a firm believer, and I say this because I heard it once myself, but something is only significant until you can have it. And so when you start to realize the blessings that are out there, we do, sabotage ourselves and sabotage our own mindset. And I have crazy self-reflection on this, not coming from much. When our business was new, and we, just like every business, I'm not saying we're any different with the way that we started. Minimal money to get started. Every dollar went back into the business, but we started in 2011, and I had a nice little crew cab pickup truck. That was my first company truck, and I only was able to have it for like a couple months because in order for us to keep serving our clients, I had to put that truck into the fleet, and it was like that was my baby, like it was my first truck. It was truck one. And I had to put it in the fleet because we needed to make money. And I had bought myself a little Ford Ranger from a guy down the street from me for like $2,700. And so now like the first 3 or 4 rigs in our fleet were like way nicer than what I was driving. But it was just, I just needed to get from point A to point B. I needed to sell, needed to go pick up garbage, all the little things I did, drove my wife's vehicle, whatever. But in 2013, we're like not even 2 years into the business. And we were, by this point, we had already probably purchased like 20 vehicles. We were growing quick. You know the story. And so we had probably bought 20, 25 trucks at this point. But my vehicle was always like that Ranger. I bought a little Chevy Cruze just because it, was like 15 grand brand new. But I went and bought myself in 2013, I bought a Denali HD, Duramax, leather, the truck, right? I put a lift on it. This thing was like, it was money. And literally it was money. And totally couldn't afford it. But it was like, I had felt this need to like justify driving a nice vehicle. For one, it was, perception, it was image, it was branding. And so I thought it looked weird. I'm trying to sell these multi-million-dollar, deals and clients, and I'm rolling up in a little humble Ranger or a Chevy Cruze or whatever it was at the time. And so it was almost like I had this first little taste of money personally, but it's like I couldn't just put that away and actually start saving for the future, it's like I had to spend it. Like I really never, and my wife will, she'll die on the mountain when she says, like, she's definitely the frugal one of our marriage. And I'm just the one that, like, if I see something, if I want it, I don't even like to set goals because, like, I'm gonna get it. I like whatever it takes. Like, if I truly want it, but that whole mindset of it's only significant until you can have it. Like, we have to raise what our level of significance is. We have to raise what that is, because if we think that something is just completely out of reach, like when I get into, a room with another business owner, like you with Myron Golden, people that are, 50 chapters ahead of where both of us are at in our journey, like they're they're really no different than we are. You talk to them, have conversations, they just think differently. They just don't, their level of significance and thinking, a lot of them came from the same backgrounds guys like me and you had. But they think differently. They've made one or two decisions that were probably bolder at the time than guys like me and you made, and look where they're at. So being in those conversations, being in that, raising that bar. You've probably heard the story about the barber that won $1 million in the lottery. I don't know if you ever heard the story, but barber, wins $1 million in the lottery, but he still continues to be a barber. And a question got asked to him. They're like, "Hey, is it true that, like, you won $1 million in the lottery?" And he said, "Yeah, I did." And he's like, "Why are you still cutting hair?" And he's like, "Well, I won $1 million after I paid some taxes. I paid my house off. I took my entire family on a cruise. I bought my kids a house." He said the money was gone. Like, he blew it within the matter of like 2 months. The money was gone instead of like investing it. And I think that there is so much truth there, Josh, that when people get that first little taste of just the minuscule success, that they just sabotage themselves and think that they don't deserve it. So I think your answer was long, but it was needed, and I know that's resonating with somebody. Let's get back to business stuff. You've built,
Can I, can
you've
I can I
built.
comment on the last
Oh,
part that
please,
you just
please.
said? Well, one thing I've noticed is that everybody has a panic number. And I'm writing a book this year, and part of it will be articulating this, but I think this is interesting. So, a panic number meaning if your personal bank account gets below a certain number, and it's different for everybody, but this number does exist. For me, when I lived in a trailer park, if I had less than $100 in my bank account, I would freak out. And what's interesting is I didn't have to read a book or go to a seminar. I didn't have to, like, pump myself up. I didn't have to do anything. My automatic response to the panic number was to solve the problem. And I'd immediately take massive disproportionate volume of action and solve the problem. And what I mean by solve the problem is I'd get my money back into what I call the identity range, right? So there's like a high number and a low number. Both of these, high and the low, cause you to panic, right? So we kind of live in a range of who we think we are, what we think we're worthy of. And so what'll happen if you dip below, you're like, wait, $72, I'm a, I'm better than that. And then boom, now I'm living back in my few $1,000 range, right? But if I had like $10,000, I'd start to feel weird, right? And so I have friends, $1 million in their personal checking account is their panic number. Like, if it dips below it, they're like, they just boom, they do stuff, make moves, get it back over, right? So the number can be different. But what I think is interesting about your lottery example is, like, over 80% of lottery winners are bankrupt within about 5 years, because even having too much money breaks the frame of who you think you are.
Mm.
And so we will take subconscious action to correct the situation and, like, get the bank account back to where we think it's supposed to be for who we think we are. Does that make sense? So I had a buddy of mine sold a company for like 8 million bucks. And this is a big deal, right? He never made tons and tons of money. I mean, his company grew a lot the last few years, but when you're in hyper growth mode, you're reinvesting. My wife had broken down junky minivans while we had a fleet of trucks and stuff, just like you were talking about. But when that wire hits, it's like crazy, right? So this guy, like, on a Tuesday, has like $8 million wired into his thing, and he calls me and he's like, "Hey, I'm freaking out. What should I do? Like, do you know any investments I can do?" I'm like, I'm not an investor guy per se, but let's talk about that. So he's like, "Well, I'm thinking about doing real estate and this and that." And he just has all these ideas, right? And what I told him, I said, "Bro, what I think you should do is nothing." I think the most important thing you can do is absolutely literally nothing, maybe for a year, at least for 6 months. Because you need to get up in the morning and drink your coffee and look at your Chase bank account and just let your neurochemistry and your nervous system adapt to the fact that this is your new normal. We need your identity range to move up, okay, before you sabotage and go invest in a bunch of harebrained nonsense because you feel so uncomfortable having $8 million in your bank account, right? I wanted to throw that in because I think it's profound. And you're right. People that are ahead of us, mostly the reason why is it's not just that they think different; it's they believe different.
Believe
They
different.
live
That's
in
good.
anticipation. They think things are going to work out for them, and it's not just positive thinking. They're like delusional in a positive to their own self way. They live in a reality distortion field. People describe Steve Jobs as a guy that lived in a reality distortion field, and people like Myron, that's how they live. They're like, things are going to go amazing. Everything's happening for me, not to me. Right? They have an
My
abundant
wife
mindset.
was she was washing my clothes a couple weeks ago, and she's like, "Hey, I found like $48 in your pocket," and like it was no big deal, and we kind of laughed because we remembered back when when we were first starting to date, high school, fresh out of high school, like, dude, we would make $20. We would get a pack of smokes, a big drink Mountain Dew, and we would go to Groveland Oaks Park there in Holly, for the day with some hot dogs and burgers for $20. And you talk
Yeah.
about that, like that sound the alarm, like panic number. Like we just laughed because those we see little glimpses of the way things used to be and just the way they think now. I love the way you said it's believe. It's not thinking, it's believing. That is so true. On that note, from a business standpoint, you have obviously built, sold, advised, coached, led, mentored, businesses at multiple stages, including your own businesses, right? What mindset shifts did you have to make for yourself? Because I know where you came from. I know where you came from. So if you're speaking to the guy that literally the dude, the guy listening, he just wants to get off the truck. That's all. Like that to him, he's like, I think that's like
Yeah.
everybody's first level entrepreneurial dream is like they just don't want to have to be the guy out there cutting the lawn, washing the windows, pressure washing the house, putting up the Christmas lights, see, epoxy coat in the garage, whatever. So what mindset shifts do you remember having to make? Go back to the from the pizza delivery person to Birds Beware when it first got started.
Um, okay. So I think if there's one really good tactical answer to that, I think the faster you adopt the identity of a marketer, the faster you'll get to the next level for yourself. So what I mean by that is I'm not talking about advertising. Okay, let's just talk about two things. Number one, in the West, in the United States and Europe, it's common that people introduce themselves by saying, I am a plumber. They use I am statements and then attach their vocation to it. But that's not how the rest of the world does it, which I think is really interesting. Most other places say I do plumbing or some variant of that, right? So what happens is us as business owners, we get our identity and our business all mushed together like it's one thing. It's not one thing. These are completely independent things. Your business is not who you are, it's what you do. Who you are is who you are, and what you do is what you do. So this matters because if you keep telling yourself, I am a plumber, I'm a plumber, I am a cleaner, I am a landscaper, um, it's really, really dumb. Don't do that. Because first of all, it's not true. Second of all, you need to, if you're going to use an I am statement, identify as a marketer or as a CEO or as an executive or as an investor or something. Um, so we have a saying at my company that everything is marketing and marketing is everything.
I use that statement from you a lot, and I'll swap marketing sometimes for branding because I think the two are commingled. But
Yeah, and it actually goes beyond business. Like what I mean when I say everything is marketing, I'm talking about parenting.
mm,
I'm talking about dating. Dating is definitely marketing. Now, luckily for me, I married my high school girlfriend, and she's the greatest trophy wife in the history of mankind. And I'm married so far up, I need a ladder. And like, I'm literally the luckiest guy ever. There is no one on earth that supports me more than my wife, Ashley. But dating is marketing, and so Alex Hormozy, his definition of marketing is the one I like best. It's the word marketing means to make known. That's all it means. So inside your business, you have to market to yourself. That's tough. You have to market to your staff, right? Choreographed communication to make known the values, principles, and beliefs to your team, right? Then, of course, there is advertising and marketing and branding and all this stuff. But really, it's like if you want to get out of the truck, you need to change your identity. And you're a marketer that just happens to sell cleaning. You're a marketer that just happens to build retaining walls. Like insert whatever you want, doesn't matter. It's people that make all the money are the ones that think like that every single time. If I call Tommy Mello right now, I've known him for quite a while. He'll probably be my first friend that's a billionaire. He's really close to being a billionaire already, which is insane. When I met him, his business was doing like 24 million a year, which is still pretty big. And what he's done is crazy. But if I call him right now on this podcast and I'm like, yo, what was your cost per lead the last week? He would just know it. He would just know it. He wouldn't have to go look it up. He wouldn't have to send an email. Like he knows all of his KPIs. He thinks like a marketer. They know how to fill capacity, make it rain with leads. He knows how to internally market to his team. They all are in the vision. This quote, we actually spoke at this conference at Russell Brunson's thing in Mexico yesterday morning. And one of the things we told everybody here, there's like 300 people here. We said, create a vision so big that other people can build a solar system inside of your universe. Like your vision has to be like a universe. This is what Tommy has done, right? Because he knows that he's a marketer. He's a marketer to his staff. He's a marketer, for customers, but more, he's a marketer to himself. But create a vision that's like a universe that other people can build a solar system inside of, Figure out how your top employees can make six figures. You want to get off the truck? Start trying to solve that problem. The only way you can solve it is by being a more sophisticated marketer. The language you use, the pacing, the tonality, the choreography. What does it feel like to work for you? What does it feel like to do business with you? Everything is marketing. Marketing is everything. The pacing, the mirroring. We could talk for 2 hours just about phone scripts on this one podcast. And you can go so deep on any of this stuff. Do it, because that's the escape velocity plan. Like the way to get out of the field is start thinking like a marketer. And last thing I'll say is sometimes when I'd work in small groups of people, I would tell them to pretend like they had to hit all of their business goals, but to pretend like they had no arms and no legs. And years ago, we had this guy come speak at Conquer that like climbed Mount Kilimanjaro.
I was there for that. Yep.
Yeah, and he was like I don't remember his exact situation, but he didn't have legs; he had nubs, right? He climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. So this is a thought exercise. If you as a business owner had to still hit 2.3 million or whatever your goal is this year, but you physically did not have arms and legs, could you still achieve that goal? That's my question for you. The answer is yes. But everything about your approach would have to change because you can't hop in and fix it. You can't do it yourself. The only resource you can use to hit your goals is your communication and your imagination. That's how you get rich. That's how you build wealth. That's how you get free. That's how you protect your family. You have to lean into imagination, communication, take on the identity of a marketer that just happens to sell retaining walls or whatever.
I struggled. You just punched me right in the gut when you made the statement there about the identity side, because and even still today, like I struggle with calling myself the CEO of Atlas. I just don't like it. Like actually I'm pretty sure on like my Facebook and my LinkedIn, I think it actually says that I'm the team coach. And so even when I'm talking to people in conversations, I struggle to say, yeah, I'm the owner of Atlas Outdoor. Like I found myself saying that I'm in the landscape industry but I understand marketing. Like I understand the message, getting it out there, putting my team on a pedestal. I get that side. But from a personal identity side, there was a point where people, like my identity had became the guy that owns Atlas. It became who people knew me as. And I guess there's worse things to be known as. We've built an incredible business. But I remember it's probably been about 4 years now-ish. Like somebody had introduced me. I don't know if I was at church or wherever it was, and somebody had introduced me as, hey, this is Sam. He owns Atlas Outdoor. And even though I had been introduced as that hundreds, if not thousands of times when people were introducing me to somebody, This time it hit different. And even though there's nothing wrong with that, again, I am so grateful and thankful for what we've been blessed with. But this one hit different. And I was like, I don't want my identity to be the guy that owns Atlas Outdoor. I want people to be like, this guy is just an impact in the community. This guy is a great dad. He's a great husband. This guy just absolutely is madly in love with Jesus and sharing the gospel. And he teaches. Like, Jesus is, if you were to, what would you define Jesus as? He was a teacher. And so I don't know why like that. And my wife's still to this day is like, you need to get over that. Like, I didn't want my identity to be Atlas anymore. Like,
Well, is it,
I'm
can I ask you a question about it? Is it more of like the label CEO? Does it make you feel like a shame frame? Like, oh, I'm not really a CEO. I'm just a regular guy that cares about people. Or is it more like it just feels like it's a limiter to who you really are? Like you're bigger than that. Is it a limiter? Or is it like you feel weird with such a fancy title? Between the two, which one is more accurate?
definitely not the limiter. Definitely not where I feel, and that's a great question. It's definitely not where I feel like it's a limiter. It's more so like quick little like 1 minute story. I went to one of the dark years of business. When I almost was like, we need to just shrink it down and make it back more manageable again. I had took a team of like 10 people to this conference in Louisville. And actually the guy, totally another God thing, the guy that put on the class is actually who introduced me to Conquer. Isn't that crazy? But at the time, the Conquer didn't even exist. But how's that crazy how that
Yeah.
works? But anyway, this guy put it on this class. I had like 8 to 10 of my team members in there. And went there to get some certifications, just trying to get better as a leader because things were not going well. And I had reached out to him after because he had talked about business coaching. He was a professional coach. And when we were there and he said that, I reached out to him after and said, hey, I'm the Atlas Outdoor guy. I was there. And he actually said he did not know I was the owner of the company because he said the way I let my team talk, they're more like, I guess I just never I never, it's two different things, right? Like the CEO part is not that it's an upper level. I think it's just something where I feel weird about it around my team, like because I want everybody to think and act and make decisions as owners. So I honestly think it probably just goes back to even my kids, like not to go down that trail, but man, my daughter, like she, we got a cool car, fun car to drive, and it's whatever car. I love it. My wife loves it. But my daughter will not let me drop her off at school in it because she's like, my friends talk about, your dad's car and this and this and that. And like, she just is not. I'm like, what creates that? I'm trying. And that's a whole,
Well,
probably a whole other
I'm
episode,
noticing how
but
you're not even saying what the car is right now.
it's literally a ZL1 Camaro. That's
Okay.
this sick blue
But
Camaro.
it's so interesting because it's I think just we're just doing this live here, having intervention therapy, but it sounds like a shame. It sounds like a shame frame. Okay. So the reason you want to figure this out is because it doesn't empower you, it depowers you. And doesn't it should annoy you that that label has so much power over you.
That's
Like,
good.
so for me, like one of my biggest fears, I think I'm mostly over this now, but for years, like I was so scared that other people would think that I think that I'm great. I know it sounds really weird, but like I go on the internet, if I go speak somewhere, like, man, I hope people don't think that I think that I'm awesome because I'm like, I would overcorrect so hard to make sure no one thought I was arrogant. But I would overcorrect so hard. It was like it just neutered the way I'd say anything, the way I'd answer things. It was like this filter. And so it would also bleed into like the way that I would dress. So even when we had lots of money, I remember because we were so poor, and then we had money and we were poor again. And then we had money. We've had crazy financial ups and downs. One time, my wife was like, her mom asked if she wanted to go to a garage sailing, and my wife's like, I don't know if we have cash, and so she went to the ATM to get like $40, and there's like $200,000 in that account. She's like, oh, I guess we're okay. Like that's how dramatic some of the swings were. she's like, oh, I guess we're okay. But that poverty identity and the shame around success made it to where I would always wear really junky clothes on purpose. Like I liked it was almost this weird thing where I'd like to go around successful people. I had more money, resources, knowledge. I had more success than they did, but it didn't look like that I did. and I would like it or something. It's basically a weird giant head game. So a friend of mine challenged me. He's like, "Why don't you go buy a nice pair of shoes?" I'm like, "I don't care about shoes. People that buy fancy shoes are just arrogant and they just think it matters and it doesn't matter." He's like, "Wow, you're getting pretty worked up, Josh. Sounds like that has a lot of power over you." I'm like, "It doesn't have power over me. I'll buy whatever I want." My point is like, so I went and bought these $1,000 shoes just to feel the discomfort of wearing them, to try to like understand like whether I have those shoes or those shoes, it should have no effect on my nervous system. Whether or not someone calls you CEO or not shouldn't actually make you feel anything, because it's factually true. And it's no big deal if they say it, or if you want to use a different label, that's okay too. But I think the fact that you feel weird about it is, it's just I think it's a cool side quest to go down that road and figure it out and like be power.
Mark Cuban, everybody knows who billionaire Mark Cuban is. He is like one of the most humbly dressed dudes there is. The dude will wear like jeans and a stretched out t-shirt, and be in a room full of, suit and tie guys. And the question got asked to Mark once, man, why do you dress like a bum? And Mark said, when you have made it so far in your journey that you can step into a room full of everybody wearing suits and you can like wear a t-shirt, and just whatever, he's like, that's the guy that's got all the power, not the guys that are all wearing the suits. And even though mine is, and probably yours too a little bit, is like polar opposite of that, but it is definitely something where like there was so, I don't even know. I can't even follow that up. That's that right there, to think about what creates that povertish mindset of, even like there was a point, I think back in business, there's back to the bricks as a car thing, downtown Flint. And like they do a car cruise. I don't know if you even remember that back in your
Oh
days,
yeah.
but
Yep.
people cruise up and down Saginaw Street in Flint. And the first like 2 or 3 years of Atlas, 15, 20, 25 trucks, we would get every truck and we'd polish them all up and we would go cruise that. Ever I'd get, every one of my team members that could drive. That's a superpower in business. You can drive, you got a license. we would cruise the bricks and people would be like, dang, these guys are like hardcore. All these Atlas vehicles are all white, they're all shiny. And anyway, like it got to a point one year where somehow I'm like, we're not allowed to do that anymore. And because it would be like braggadocious, like we are, we know where we're going, we know where we came from. And so like I will be the guy that will like hide something, from a photo, or not see something because I just don't want to put that out there. I don't know that we, like you said, we could
Well,
literally,
that can be okay. That could be strategic. It just depends on if it has an effect on you. Are you doing it out
yeah,
of strategy or out of subconscious response triggers? That's the difference. Like when
that's
your
so good.
company is small, you want to appear big, and when your company
Yep.
is big, you want to appear small. That's
Yeah.
strategic thinking, right? You want to feel like the hometown, everybody's buddy company, right? Well, when you're doing $1 million a month in revenue or more, you're pretty big. And so you need to have systems so you don't sound like the big corporate sterile Borg. What we're talking about though is if someone labels you CEO and you get all weird feeling, that's interesting. So it's like, why is that happening? What about you know what I'm saying? We didn't figure it out, but maybe we got in the neighborhood. I just think it's interesting because whether Mark Cuban wears nice clothes or not, I just know people are the same as middle schoolers, including billionaires. Like adults are exactly the same as middle schoolers. We're just way better liars. Way better. We're more sophisticated liars, right? So people are insecure at all levels. It's shocking. There was a guy at my studio in Dallas last week. He does about 8 million in the pest control business. Really nice guy, like family guy. And we're driving around, and I have a Corvette at our studio in Texas, and we are driving around having fun. And he's like, "Man, I just don't know if I have what it takes to like mentor other people." I'm like, what? Why do you how do you even think that? Like he's in the top 1% of pest control companies. Like you can't accidentally do $8 million a year in pest control. Okay. Plus he lives in another state. His whole team is systemized. He's got a badass business, right? But even that guy has total imposter syndrome, right? I've had private conversations with Tommy in the past with like everybody. Nobody is like permanently perfectly fixed and figured out.
Yep.
Maybe that's a good encouraging lesson.
So good. I pride myself on telling our customers and I'll have some of my early Atlas Ambassador clients that are still clients today. They'll be like, I remember when you used to come in here and bring pizza into our team for lunch, and hey, you got any like landscape work I can do or anything? And they're like, now, years later, like we, obviously we know how to get a hold of you or whatever, but like things have changed to where it was before. And I like to pride myself on being the company that has a large company capacity. We can handle anything, but we still have the small company feel. You don't have to press one to get a hold of the owner. My cell phone is still on my email address, and I think that I am proud of that side, and maybe that's where that mindset comes from. I want to end it with this because I want to be respectful of your time. But if there's somebody listening to this, because this is just a great segue, because we're talking about that mental negative loop, because it really is. Like when I go speak on a stage in front of thousands of people, and the mediator or whatever, or the person that's introducing me, they're reading my bio, like my heart beats right before. You wouldn't know getting on that stage. People are like, dude, you're such a natural in front of a crowd. But my heart beats a million miles an hour from the time I'm standing side stage to when I get up on that stage. And once I'm up there and I start talking, it just becomes natural. But if there's ever a time when the devil like tries to get into my mind, it's right there where he's like, dude, you don't deserve, who do you think you are? Right. And I'm trying to teach myself, and I want to teach people that are under my charge, under my leadership, under my coaching, don't do the devil's work for him, man. Don't do it for him. Like he's going to try to give you that negative loop, that negative mental mindset. Don't you go do the work for him and give him some low hanging fruit. But to the person listening to this that is just struggling with that negative loop mentally, like I don't deserve success, they get that little taste of significance and they sabotage themselves and go right back to where they were. What do you think is the first step that they can take to renew the mindset literally today as they're listening to this episode?
They have to start speaking truth to themselves. When someone says, who am I? I don't know if I deserve this. My question to them would be, who told you that? Because it's not true. So this is actually a conversation about truth and lies. And so we really can't have this conversation without talking about God. Because if you don't think there is such a thing as absolute truth, if you don't think that God is love, if you don't think God's a good dad, he loves you, he has a mission, a mandate, a purpose, a destiny for you, your life's just going to be different, and I don't know what to tell you. But I know that those things are true. So what you say to someone is they need to build themselves up with truth. So for example, when I wake up every morning, I tell myself, Josh, I don't say Josh, but to myself, I say, I'm safe, protected, and unafraid. I'm always in the right place at the right time because my footsteps are ordered by God. The Lord is preparing a table before my enemies, right? I'm the head and not the tail. Everything God made, he made to grow and expand, including me. Before the foundations of the world, God created good works for me to do. I can't fail even if I tried, right? God is a good dad. I have a mission, mandate, purpose, and destiny on my life. Like, and here's the thing. All this stuff I just said to myself is truth. It's truth. Okay. I am the king over an assignment that God's prepared for me, and so are you. Whether you think that's true or not, is your choice. But this is what I mean by stepping into the reality distortion field. Everybody on earth is already a believer. The question isn't, are you a believer? It's, are you a believer on like the positive side or the negative side? Because faith and doubt are both belief. When you have doubt that you're not worthy, when you have doubt that it's not going to work out, all you're doing is placing your belief in a negative future outcome that you're just making it up. In both scenarios, you're just making stuff up. Oh, it's all going to fall apart. My wife's going to leave me. I'm going to go bankrupt, just like my drunk dad did, or whatever movie is playing in your head. When you fixate on a negative future outcome, that's doubt, you're going to ruin your life and you're going to stay perpetually stuck. And the people that are succeeding and having more joy while they do it, they are obsessed over positive future outcomes. Okay, a desirable future outcome, because now instead of living in anxiety, we can live in anticipation. Just like you did when you were 8 years old on Christmas Eve. You couldn't even go to sleep because you wanted to wake up and open your presents, right? So when you have anticipation, it creates energy in you. When you have anxiety, it takes away energy from you. That's why in the beginning, just to go full circle, stop trying so hard to succeed, start letting yourself succeed.
Mhm.
Right? The goal isn't to just do stuff. The goal is to feel like doing stuff. And who knows that it's not hard to have the energy to get up and open your Christmas presents on Christmas morning when you're 8 years old. It's because of your state of anticipation, because of what you feel. Your expectation is so high. Like the power of human expectation is gigantic. It's like the eighth wonder of the world. So uh, I don't know. That might sound weird, but this is the actual truth. This is the answer. If no one's going to speak life into you, you got to do it to yourself.
Yep.
King David, it says that he built himself up in the Lord. He would talk to himself. So talk to yourself in a positive way. Love
Yep.
yourself.
I think
You have,
the stress is found in the thinking. The stress is found in the thinking. The antidote to the thinking is action. So when you're thinking about this, like if you go, people ask me, how do I know if I'm, because I'll mention a lot, whether it's, in coaching or talking to a team member, I talk a lot about the difference between being tired and being depleted. There's a big difference. If you're tired, you could take a nap. If you're depleted, you're no good for anybody, including yourself. And a question that I get back a lot is, well, how do I know the difference? How do I know which one I'm experiencing? I was like, that's a great question. I mean, if you can go on a quick vacation for 2-3 days to Florida and clear your mind and get back at it, you probably just needed a little recharge. We all need ways to recharge. I myself, probably you as well, I recharge daily. I wake up and pour out from the time I get out of bed in the morning. And then at the end of the day, I have my couple little things with my wife just to recharge for the next day. But the one thing that I know, how you know there's the difference between the two, is if when you go to bed, you reflect on the day and you've got some stress and some anxiety that's there. It's very, very normal for us as leaders and as business owners. But when you wake up, if you wake up and you're already thinking of the stress and the anxiety that you're going to have to face before you've even started to take action, then that's probably a pretty good sign that you need to work on your IMs, because you're already waking up thinking of the bad that's going to happen today and not the good, not the impact that you're going to have on the world. And on that note, I want to tie a bow on our episode, because dude, I'm blowing away at some of the stuff that I took in today. I want to have a little fun. I want to have just some quick lightning round questions for you, Josh, for people that just might not know. If people don't know who you are, then they've been living under a rock for a long time, Josh, because you've made an impact on thousands and thousands of people's lives. And know the work you're doing does not go unnoticed. But I want to have a little fun. Quick 20-30-second questions, no wrong answer, just something to where people that might be like, oh, I've kind of checked out for the episode, but let me engage and jump right back in here for these last couple questions. For you, we're talking a lot about mindset, clarity, IMs, all that. What is your go-to daily routine to help you win your day mentally?
immersion in truth. So one weird thing about me is that I spend at least an hour a day studying truth. One way to deprogram lies is to immerse yourself in truth. So whether it's woo,
Bless you. That was good.
allergies are acting up. Sorry about that. So whether it's reading scripture, listening to audiobooks, things like that, listening to detailed teachings on things, I mean, I learn and study and think every day. I started doing this in 2015, so it's been about 10 years, I guess, where every day I have time to think, because I'm a huge believer you have to think about what you think about. Most of us, we have like 60 or 80,000 thoughts a day, and like 90% of them are repeats of the day before. So we need to create space to think about what we think about.
Create
What?
space to think. That's good. Last 12 months, what's the most impactful book you've read or listened to?
Probably, I guess, The Gap and the Gain. I'm kind of biased because Ben Hardy, the writer of that book, is at this conference we're at, and he just kind of really impressed me again. He has another book coming out. The main premise being, don't obsess and get married to the outcome of your goals. Like understand how far you've come, because it actually creates more momentum so you can go faster. You know, fixating on goals in the future will always disappoint you. You need to divorce yourself from the outcome, meaning you can set targets and goals, but your joy and happiness needs to be derived from the journey itself, not from achieving the outcome. It's complicated, but really good advice.
That's great. What is you're probably one of the most like what you I think every conversations I've had with Josh Latimer have been the same. Like it's the same Josh every time. Like you are one consistent dude with the way you deliver and everything you do. What is one thing that could happen that instantly will like reset your mindset if you're getting off? If you're not the normal Josh, what is one thing that you can do to instantly reset your mindset?
Right. Intimacy with my wife.
Mm.
Special mommy daddy special time, if you know what I mean. I mean, there's something, see, Ashley and I have trauma bonded together through entrepreneurship. We have a bachelor's degree in pain and a master's degree in suffering. So we have this unique like way to really affect each other, you know. So like when if I get down or something's wrong, like she comes in like a wrecking ball and just can do a lot. I mean, outside of Jesus himself, you know, touching me, my wife, you know, because if you have a wife that's not on board, good Lord, are things harder for you.
Yep.
And if you get in momentum with your spouse, it's you feel like nothing can stop you.
So good. That's so good. If you could, I don't know if you're a tattoo person or not, but if you could get one tattoo that was a quote about mindset,
Oh,
what would that quote be?
oh, I'd have to think about that for so long. A tattoo.
Of a quote.
Oh man.
All right,
I'm,
a sticker on the window of your Corvette.
yeah. Your history doesn't define your destiny.
Mm. Thank goodness our future is not determined by our past. Whew.
Yes.
Amen to that one. Amen to that one. What's the best piece of leadership or life advice you have ever received? Last question.
That one, all conflict is a result of unmet expectations. If you think about it, like every little argument with your spouse, every time you're mad at an employee or they're mad at you, like literally all conflict is a result of unmet expectations. So what that means is we got to be way more clear on like there's what you say and there's what you're saying. There's what something says and there's what it's saying. Like there's what you mean and what people think you mean. There's a book called I Said This, You Heard That, right? So like we think we're communicating and we're not. And so like your whole organization, you're like, I did cast vision, I did do the thing. It's like, no, you didn't. You think that you did. Your heart posture is correct, but like the skill level in which you communicated was not sufficient, right? So I think all conflict is a result of unmet expectations is a really applicable leadership quote.
Who said that to you?
That quote.
Who said that to you? The best advice you've ever received. Who was the one that told you that?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Who told you that? Yeah.
That's gold. That's absolutely gold. Absolutely
Yeah.
gold. Well, man, Josh, I want to kind of land the plane right there. I mean, this episode could go on for 2 hours, just like our conversations. Hey, you got 2 minutes? There's no such thing as a 2-minute conversation with Josh Latimer because you always just bring it. You always just do it. I wish I could have unpacked more about just the way you and Ashley couplepreneur life, right, and raise your beautiful kids. And I mean, there's a lot of people looking on and watching and cheering you on, and I'm a firm believer that you are where you are at in your journey because somebody somewhere was praying for you, and they still are. And so, man, you're truly making an impact in the world. And I just want to say thank you for adding value to our community today. And you guys listening, if this episode spoke to you today, drop a review. Maybe share it with somebody that just needs a boost, somebody that needs something. Maybe somebody listening that's just like, man, my mindset is just lost or I'm feeling depleted, and just share it with them and let's just keep on growing together. Thank you, you guys, for giving us your most valuable resource that you have, which is not your money. It's not your ears, it's your time. You've given us your time today, and we don't take that lightly. So we appreciate that. I don't want nobody to forget that we always talk about this a lot, but it's easy to look at somebody like Josh where he's at in his journey, or we talked about Tommy or Myron today, or even myself. It's easy for you to look at where people are at in their journey and just like get paralysis, just because you're like, I'm never going to be there. I'm never going to be that. But what I don't want you guys to forget is that growth doesn't happen in a day. You don't wake up and just build a successful business. You don't just wake up and build a successful marriage or become a successful parent. Growth doesn't happen daily or in a day. It happens daily. Growth happens daily. So just a little bit, apply what Josh was talking about today to just 5 minutes of your day. I'm telling you right now, you do that, your life and your leadership and your business will be changed. I promise you guys, I'm going to keep bringing you guys real, unfiltered, actionable content to help you lead with purpose. And if anybody ever wonders, man, Sam, Josh, why do you guys get so obsessed about this stuff? What does it matter? You guys could be doing whatever you want, but you take the time to record podcasts. Josh is writing a book. You take the time to blog and send text and post and all that. Why does it matter to you guys so much? The reason is because we know, maybe it is a little bit of a selfish motive in there, but we know that when we get better, every one of us gets to move forward together. So until next time, make sure you guys stay intentional, stay courageous, and unbelievably just never ever settle, because that breakthrough that you're waiting, that you're looking for, it literally could be it could be in 5 minutes. You just have to be intentional about it. Be blessed, you guys. Peace out.